Hey guys, Carrie. Was just reading a post in our Facebook group about smoothing skin. A lot of people not having an action for that, and I just kind of wanted to share with you a way that you can do it on your own computer and make your own action without having to spend a bunch of money to buy an action. So you can customize the action to smooth as much as you want, and that's what I'm going to show you guys. So just so you know, this is a fellow photographer's son, Knox. It's Lexi Green's son, and she graciously let me use a photo of him for this sample. And I've already cleaned him up a little bit, gotten rid of some of his baby acne, and made him look extra cute. And so now I might just want to smooth his skin a little bit more. And the way I would start out doing that is I would want to make an action. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to this menu right here and hit New Action. I'm going to call it Skin Smoothing. You can pick what set you want it to go under. I'm going to pick Carrie's set, and then I'm going to hit Record. Once you hit Record, everything that you're doing is recorded. Any buttons and stuff that you press in here or layers are recorded. Me moving my mouse or changing the size of the photo, none of that is actually recorded in the action. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a duplicate layer, and we can call it Smoothness or whatever you want to call it. Doesn't really matter. And this is the layer that we're going to apply a blur to. And then what we're going to do is we're going to be able to change the opacity and basically how much you want it to blur depending on how much you want your skin to be smooth. So from here we're going to actually go up to Filter. We're going to come up to Blur. You could pick any one of these. I'm going to pick Surface Blur. And then what I want to do is I kind of want to tell it how much I want it to blur. And you can pick anywhere in here when you're making your action to kind of decide where you want your blur to be. More might be better because then you have more ability to change the opacity later in the action and adjust it the way you want. So we're going to take that surface blur, we're going to apply it to the entire photo. And this is all being recorded. You can see when your action is recorded right down here. So we're just going to wait for it. It's going to take a while. Sorry for the silence. Once it's up here, what we're going to actually do is we're going to take our eraser tool and we're going to erase where we do not want the picture blurred, and then we're going to leave the parts that we do want blurred, like his face, and then we'll be able to change the opacity to how much we want it blurred so it looks natural. There's usually a fine line between it looking natural and it not looking natural. And from there, we'll stop recording our action, and then what you can do is every time that you want to use that action, you can take it out, play it, erase everything, and do all of that. So the action's been applied. You can see the blur a little bit better. You can kind of tell a slight difference, especially if you look at his eyes. His eyes get less sharp. You can also use the some of the other blur tools and use some of those to get even more blur. So what I'm doing now is I'm erasing the blur from this layer so that when I see the two layers together, I see the combination of both. I can see the blur disappearing out of the blanket as I'm erasing. And you can see up here where I've erased. We might zoom in a little bit and erase a little bit more. Erase his hair so it has definition. And then I would come in and I would erase the blur from his eyes so that they're a little bit sharper. This is a very light blur, but you can make that pixel size and stuff a little bit bigger so that you get more skin smoothing if that's what you desire in your action. And from here, this is at 100%, but we can take it all the way down to nothing. It's very, very subtle. If you use the surface blur, it's going to be pretty subtle for smoothing. If you want a combination of different blurs while we're still recording here, we can actually make another layer. We're going to actually click background first. We're going to duplicate that layer. I'm going to call it super smooth. So this way you could have an action with varying levels of smooth. And on this one, we can do that blur and maybe make it real crazy. So it'll get super blurry. And that one applied, you can see a huge difference. I'm kind of doing this to show you what some of your options are again. What I'm going to do again on this one is erase all of that so he's nice and sharp looking again, where we want him to be. So I'm going to keep erasing, erase all of this blur that we added. And if you do an action like this, it'll give you an option to have, you know, 2 different kinds of blurs, a little bit more control over it. We're going to come back in here again, and this time you should be able to see the difference in the video. When I erase the blur from his eyes, all of a sudden they're nice and crisp and clear again. So features like this, I want his nose to be pretty sharp and his lips to be sharp. Okay, so I might do a more detailed job if I was really wanting to try, but from here, if his skin looks a little bit too smooth, we can change the opacity if we want. When you're making an action though, you want to leave them up to 100% opacity so that in the action later you can change things. If you set the opacity now in the action, I think it records it if I remember correctly. It could be wrong. So I leave them at 100 and then I can adjust them on my own. But once we're done with that, we can hit stop, and now we have a whole brand new action. And let's say, for example, we applied this action here. Let's say we let's delete these layers and pretend like we're going to start over. So we're going to pretend like this is the original photo. And so now we can go into the skin smoothing action, press play, and it's going to come up with all of those layers on its own. Might take a while to load. Skin smoothing actions usually take a while. So we're waiting. Once this shows up, the surface blur takes a while, but it's going to show you both of those layers, and you'll be able to go back in and erase on both of those layers, change the opacity, do all of those things, and use it like you would any other normal action. But this way you can easily make your own instead of spending $100 to buy one. You don't have to do that. You can always make your own actions. It's just a matter of figuring everything out. Sorry for the wait. I don't mean to have dead air. It's bad radio. There we go. So it's got that first one, and then now it's got both. And we can go in and make changes, do everything that we want, and that's it.